Hi everyone, welcome to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast, your daily audio summary of the latest news reported in the Ukrainian media. My name is Artem, and here is the news. For 662 days, Ukraine stands strong against the forces of the Russian invasion. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky informed in his evening video address that Kyiv continues to actively work to ensure that next year will include sufficient financial support programs for Ukraine. This includes bilateral programs with partner countries, programs at the EU level, as well as the process of using and confiscating Russian assets frozen in various jurisdictions. He stressed that the issue of frozen assets was one of the very important decisions addressed during the negotiations last week, in particular during his visit to the US. Quote, specifically, the G7 countries can demonstrate their leadership. The assets of the terrorist state and its affiliates should be used to support Ukraine, to protect lives and people from Russian terror. This will be fair. We are already preparing the necessary outlines for these decisions, unquote. The president also reminded about this week's discussion of the European Council to open accession negotiations with Ukraine. Quote, in the coming days, we will officially initiate with the European Commission the process of assessing Ukrainian legislation for compliance with the EU acquis, the screening process, unquote. The negotiation framework for Ukraine will be ready in the spring. Quote, the negotiation process will not be easy, but the key thing is that historically we have reached a decision. Ukraine will always be part of our common European home. And I think everyone who contributes by advancing the necessary European decisions, everyone who has been involved, unquote. We would really appreciate if you could rate us, ideally with 5 stars, and leave a glowing review in the app where you are listening to this podcast, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and others. This really helps more people to find out about the highlights from Ukraine and learn the truth about Russia's invasion. A listening device has been found in one of the potential locations which could be used by General Valery Zaluzhny, Ukraine's Armed Forces Commander-in-Chief, reports Ukrainska Pravda. The Security Service of Ukraine emphasized that the equipment was not in working order. No storage devices or means of remote audio transmission were found. This technical device will be submitted for expert examination. The law enforcers also added that it was found not in Valery Zaluzhny's office, but in one of the places that he could have used to work in the future. The criminal investigation has been opened. According to Ukrainska Pravda sources, wiretapping devices had been found in the offices of Valery Zaluzhny and some of his colleagues. The room was to have been the commander-in-chief's new office and was being inspected before he moved into it. Thank you for listening to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast. We're a commercial initiative of just 2 people and we need your help to grow. Share information about the podcast, rate us in the app, subscribe to our Patreon. With your support, we are getting better. We call on you to demand from governments of your countries to impose the toughest sanctions possible on Russia and its citizens to stop their invasion of Ukraine.